What if the real horror wasn't the devil at all, but what years of fear, isolation, and hopelessness can do to a person? Because wow, Episode 5 of The Terror, Devil in Silver, might be the most disturbing chapter of the season so far. Not because of jump scares, not because of monsters, but because we watched multiple characters completely break under pressure. And by the end of the episode, the situation inside New Hyde Hospital somehow feels even more hopeless than before. We've got a shocking murder, a tragic death, a major revelation about the mysterious silver room, and perhaps the biggest twist of all, someone who never believed Pepper's devil story finally changes her mind. Welcome back to your nerdy show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master. So let's break down everything that happened in Episode 5, explain that heartbreaking ending, and talk about what it all means heading into the finale.
He made you an offer and you said yes.
Why did Dorry kill Dr. Anand? Man, let's talk about Dorry, because what happened to her in this episode broke my heart, but it was also utterly terrifying. After Coffee died, Dorry's mental health didn't just slide, it completely tanked. And can you really blame her? Let's look at what this poor woman has been dragged through over the last couple of days. She's been directly threatened by the devil. She's had to comply with his creepy demands just to survive. She had to be the one to convince Pepper to go meet him. Then, she gets chased by a literal bison-headed monster through the dark hallways. And then, she has to witness Coffee's brutal, violent end. That is a one-way ticket to absolute psychological trauma. Dorry is completely convinced of one thing. If the unit shuts down, the devil is going to do whatever it takes to break free. And let's be real, the devil has all the motivation in the world to leave. He wasn't happy with New Hyde anymore anyway. There were barely any new patients left for him to torture and feed off of. Then, the psychological warfare steps up a notch. Pepper gets this incredibly chilling phone call from the devil, who basically blames Pepper for Coffee's death. When Pepper gets defensive and snaps, saying he's never going to let the devil out, the devil just calmly responds, "We'll see about that. We'll see about that." Chills, right? So Pepper is naturally spiraling into a massive anxiety attack after that call, and right at that exact moment, Dorry walks into his room to hand him a file. Because Pepper is so wound up and grieving, he completely loses his temper and blames Dorry for his roommate's death. But Dorry doesn't back down. She firmly believes, in her heart of hearts, that if Pepper had just complied with the devil's wishes from the very beginning, Coffee would still be alive. See, Dorry figured out a long time ago that in a place like New Hyde, absolute submission to the darkness was the only survival strategy. It was the only way she knew how to keep herself and the people she cared about from being destroyed.
Who called those cops?
The mask slips at book club, but things get truly crazy during the patient's book club. Dr. Anand gathers everyone together, and they're discussing this book called The Letters to Van Gogh. You can see the toll that the closing of the unit is taking on him. He gets incredibly emotional. He actually apologizes to the patients, telling them he feels like he failed them. He goes on this big speech about how his own selflessness is the only reason he chose to work in such a difficult, forgotten place. He talks about how passionately he feels about protecting vulnerable individuals, and he reminds everyone how important it is to have camaraderie and look out for each other in a crisis. Sounds nice, right? A totally dedicated, selfless doctor. Well, Dorry wasn't buying it, not even for a second. In front of everyone, Dorry decides to completely humiliate Dr. Anand. She looks him in the eye and asks him a very specific, pointed question. Who called the cops? Boom. Silence in the room. See, Dorry knew. She knew that it was Dr. Anand himself who had called the police to the facility, which directly triggered the chaotic chain of events that got Coffee killed. Watching the doctor sit there and try to play the saintly, selfless martyr when he had blood on his hands, it absolutely broke something inside Dorry. She felt this overwhelming, desperate need to rip off his mask and show everyone who he really was. And the doctor? He completely stumbles. He can't even answer her, because deep down, he knows he has to live with that crushing guilt for the rest of his life. The breaking point in the office. Here's the crazy part though. Dorry's mindset shifts from "I need to comply to survive" to "if I don't destroy this devil right now, he is going to destroy all of us." So she follows Dr. Anand back to his office. He tried to dismiss her, tells her he's not in the mood to entertain her, but Dorry is past the point of caring about rules. She demands to speak to him right then and there. She looks at him and says, "You can't let him out." Dr. Anand genuinely looks clueless. He's like, "Who are you even talking about?" But Dorry thinks he's just playing dumb. She tells him that everyone in the hospital hates her because she's been doing exactly what the devil commands. And then she drops a bomb. She claims the patients hate Dr. Anand too, because he has been working for the devil this entire time too. Now the doctor gets defensive. He tells her he really didn't appreciate her trying to publicly humiliate him at book club. He says it's not fair for her to throw all this blame at him. And when Dorry refuses to apologize, he snaps and threatens to put her in confinement. But Dorry is on a mission. She tells him that doing the devil's work isn't going to save him anymore. She says they are actually exactly the same. They both like to pretend they are good people. She begs him, if he actually wants to help the patients, he has to keep the devil locked inside the facility. At this point, Dr. Anand just completely loses his patience. He tells her she is beyond help. Now, let's look at the doctor's perspective for a second. He obviously knows about the devil theory that all the patients whisper about in the corridors. But it's pretty clear he has spent years convincing himself that it's just an elaborate shared delusion. Why? Because it's way more convenient to believe it's just mental illness than to admit there's a literal demon running the hallways. Even if a small part of him suspected something supernatural was real, how do you fight something invisible? You can't. So he chose to put his head down, ignore every single red flag, and just do his job. But when he completely dismisses Dorry and looks down on her, Dorry's brain takes a massive, tragic leap. She instantly assumes that since the doctor is trying to minimize her and let the facility close, the devil must have abandoned Pepper and taken up residence inside Dr. Anand himself. She convinces herself that the doctor accepted the devil's offer, and that's why the unit is being shut down, so the devil can ride out of the building inside the doctor's body. And that is when Dorry completely loses control. In a desperate, frantic attempt to destroy the evil force and save everyone, she grabs the heavy trophy off his desk. Ironically, the very trophy he was awarded for his relentless service to the vulnerable, and she starts repeatedly smacking him over the head with it. It is a brutal, horrific scene. The doctor is screaming for his life, helpless, as she just bashes him over and over again, and then literally uses her bare hands to dig into his body, trying to rip the devil out of him. To Dorry, this wasn't a murder, it was a heroic sacrifice for the greater good. But the tragic reality? She just brutally murdered a doctor who simply refused to believe her supernatural theories.
Christ, the old lady, she's going over the fence. Let's get
Oh, shit.
Who convinced Dorry to kill herself? Cut to the next scene, and Dorry is tied down to her bed, hands and feet in cuffs, covered in blood, just completely speaking in incoherent whispers. The entire facility is just paralyzed with shock. Dorry had been living at New Hyde for decades, guys. Decades! And she had never, ever shown a violent streak like this before. Deep down, though, the tragedy of Dorry is that she was drowning in guilt. She hated herself for always listening to the devil, for never standing up for herself. But recently, she'd been trying to push past that self-hate. She realized that her life being ruined wasn't her fault. It was Dr. Walter. It was Dr. Anand. It was even her own husband who had forcefully locked her away in a place she never belonged. And now, the devil wanted to use her one last time to escape, and she just refused to let him win. But then, the supernatural elements creep back in. While the police are downstairs investigating the doctor's murder, we see a creepy bluish hand appear out of nowhere and unlock the cuffs, keeping Dorry tied to the bed. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the bison-headed man. The devil knew exactly what he was doing. He knew Dorry was completely unstable, and he knew that if he set her free, she would do something extreme that would create the perfect chaotic diversion. And man, what a beautifully heartbreaking sequence this turns into. Dorry gets up, goes to her closet, and puts on the exact same dress she wore the very first day she entered New Hyde Hospital all those years ago. She looks in the mirror, smiling, genuinely happy to see that it still fits. It's like she's trying to reclaim the person she was before this place stole her life. She calmly walks out of the building, climbs all the way up to the top of the facility's high fence, looks out at the world, bids a peaceful farewell to the hospital and her friends, and she jumps. She dies instantly from the impact. It's so heavy. Dorry spent almost her entire life in that hellhole, being subjected to every terrible experimental treatment under the sun, which honestly probably caused her severe psychosis and made her unable to tell reality from hallucination in the first place. The devil gave her a twisted sense of purpose by making her his pawn, and in her final moments, she truly believed she was saving the world. Whether it was the supernatural or just the overwhelming terror of being moved to a new facility, she chose to end it on her own terms.
The devil lives there. Behind that silver door.
What makes Miss Chris believe the patients? So where does that leave everyone else? Well, Dorry's death is a massive flashing warning sign to Pepper. The devil is basically saying, look what happens when you don't cooperate. Your friends die, Coffee is gone, Dorry is gone, and Pepper knows that if he doesn't figure out a plan before the doors close for good, Lochi and the rest of the patients are next on the chopping block. But right at the end of the episode, we get a massive glimmer of hope. Miss Chris walks up to Pepper, looks him in the eye, and says the words we've been waiting to hear. I believe you. What do we do now? Let's talk about this, because this is a huge turning point. What finally changed Miss Chris's mind? Well, Coffee's death really messed her up. Before he died, Coffee told her the devil lived behind that mysterious locked silver door. Then he ran out of that room screaming for his life before meeting his end. Miss Chris originally thought the patients just made up a spooky campfire story to explain a locked door, but seeing Coffee's genuine, pure terror made her think, okay, maybe there's actually something to this. So she secretly opens the silver door. And what does she find? Just an old, unresponsive patient named Arnold, living in a perfectly neat, tidy room. No bison head, no blood, no mutilated bodies like the ones Coffee saw. But remember what we talked about in our episode 4 breakdown. If a supernatural entity truly controls New Hyde, it has the power to warp perception. It's not going to let a staff member see its true, grotesque form. It's going to make the room look perfectly normal and clean to protect itself. And Miss Chris is smart. She does some digging and finds out Arnold was brought there in 1965, got a lobotomy on his 3rd day, and committed a murder a year later, being locked away ever since. But she connects the dots to her own roots. She compares this devil to a duppy, which, if you know Jamaican folklore, is an evil spirit that doesn't just kill you. It thrives and feeds on the misery, tears, and suffering of others. It wants its victims to beg for mercy.
Duppy must return to the world of the spirits.
The ultimate plan. So, Miss Chris's new goal? She realizes they can't just let the facility close and let everyone walk away because that duppy will slip out into the world. Her plan is to trap the duppy inside New Hyde permanently. Once the unit is completely evacuated, that evil spirit will be left entirely alone in an empty building with no one left to torture. It will literally starve to death with only 1 episode left in the season. Pepper and Miss Chris are teaming up to lock down a demon. Will they make it out alive? Or is the duppy going to claim the rest of them before the door's shut for good?
What I'm saying is I believe you.
Our nerdy thoughts. Man, I cannot wait for the finale. But hey, I want to hear from you guys. What did you think of Dorry's tragic ending? Do you think Dr. Anand deserved a bit more sympathy? Or was he totally complicit in ignoring the darkness? And how do you think Pepper and Miss Chris are going to trap the duppy next week? Drop all your wild theories in the comments below. Let's talk about it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our ultimate finale explainer coming next week, and turn on notifications. Until next time, stay safe, watch out for silver doors, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Our work can begin.
No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.